Yes.
Sweet.
Still a couple people.
Yeah, I can see a couple people floating in.
Yeah, give it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, we should probably do intros too then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can
What?
start with that.
Yeah, what's going on?
So,
oh yeah, if you are in Outbound, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself right now, but then feel free to pop and ask any questions throughout the entire presentation. Cool. Okay, take it away.
all right, so I am Ashlyn Nieder, part of your Rotex, and we are giving a presentation to you today on taking care of yourself. I went to Austria on exchange 2016-17 and India 2018-19. Yeah.
I'm Bella. I'm also going to be presenting this. I'm part of Eurotex. I went to Germany in 2017, 2018.
And I'm Daniel. I'll just be chilling and watching and hanging out. And I went to Denmark in 2017, 2018 with Bella. Awesome.
All right.
Taking care of yourself.
So we're just going to talk about taking care of yourself because that's something that is overlooked a little bit, and it's so important to keep up your mental health, your physical health, emotional. Everything is very, very important in order for you to enjoy your exchange year. So there is no doubt that exchange can be kind of stressful. There's a lot of things that can cause stress during your exchange. One of them is like a drastic change to your daily routine. Also, if you get frustrated with the language, any sort of culture shock, homesickness, any new norms or customs that you might not be used to, and any unexpected circumstances. And I really think that right now is kind of of course, it's a hard time for all of us right now with everything that's going on, but I think that this is almost good for you guys to prepare you for some of the changes, because I think this is one of the, like, before I would have said that exchange was one of the most like crazy, unpredictable times of my life, but this is pretty close up there too. So you're kind of getting an experience with how things are when everything around you changes. Think of recently how much your daily schedule has just been changing, and how your daily life, everything seems to be different right now with coronavirus going around. And exchange is kind of similar, where you have unpredictable situations and different circumstances that are definitely can cause stress. So you might already be feeling a little bit of that with this change in your daily routine right now. But I think it's good preparation for exchange. And of course, the unexpected circumstances and changes on exchange are not like as bad as the changes and stuff that are going on right now. They're more positive things, but it still can be a shock for you when it happens and everything around you seems to be different. So yeah. So there are a lot of ways to cope with stress, and it's really different for everyone. The kind of things that you prefer to do, the kind of things that calm you down when you're feeling a little bit stressed. So think about things that you would normally do now to cope with stress. How are you coping with the stress of everything changing right now during coronavirus? Are you like journaling? Are you reading? Are you like taking a hot bath sometimes, doing a face mask? Like what kind of stuff is really like calms you down? So some things that you can do on exchange. The thing I would recommend the most to do is journal. I journaled pretty much my whole exchange. Every single night I wrote down what I did, even if it's just like little things. Like I went to IKEA with my host mom and we laid on every bed together, and like that kind of stuff is things that you might not like really realize in the time, that they're so important, but when you write it down, you can look back on that like a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, and remember little things about your exchange. And it was a really nice way for me to like wind down at the end of a day of my exchange and kind of reflect on those things. It really calmed me down, helped me sleep, and it's a great way to like cope with stress, is just take a time to like reflect on like what is going on in your life. You can also bring a book from home in English. I did that both times, and you can also try to like buy a book in your host country's language. And that's definitely, I love reading. That's a good stress reliever.
I'll add on to that. That was one of like the best things when I started only speaking German, was being able to like sit down for a day and just read a book in English and have that like mental relaxation, just because it's tiring speaking a whole new language all the time. And so it's like bringing a book in English is a really good way to just be able to relax and go to your own happy place.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Spend time with friends. That can always help. Talk about your problems if you're having them. Don't just hold it in. That won't help anyone. And also take a mental health day if needed. However, I will say sometimes sitting at home can make things worse. And if you're really feeling stressed about things, it's almost better to go out and do something like in your host country, do some sort of like go to a museum, or I don't know, something like that, where you can not sit and like dwell on the things that are really like stressing you out. One thing that I did is, if I was ever really stressed, if I was sad or homesick or something, so when I was in Austria, I was living kind of in a suburb of Vienna, and I usually had the choice to take the bus home after school or take the train to Vienna and then take a bus home later. And if I was just having a really bad day, I actually would force myself to take a train to Vienna and go be sad in Vienna instead of go be sad in my home. Just like, I don't know, if I wanted to like cry, I would go cry in some pretty beautiful park by some flowers in Vienna instead of being in my bed and being alone. And you know, it's just like that little thing that you can definitely still enjoy like your host country while also letting stuff out. It's hard for me to talk about this because I don't exercise, but exercise is definitely a good thing to do. And that really helps a lot of people's mental health. Another thing you can do, like I joined like a class to learn classical Indian dance, and that became a huge stress reliever for me. So if there's any sort of class or like instrument you want to learn, or anything that you join, anything that's specific to your host culture that you want to learn, if you join some sort of class like that, that can be a huge stress reliever. Communicate your feelings to your host family. Talk to your host family. They'll understand. If you're feeling homesick, they'll understand. It's the main thing is you have to communicate and talk about things, because things won't get better if you keep it inside. It'll probably get worse. So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Anything else anyone wants to add?
Going off of like the communicating your feelings to your host family, I think that's one of the most important skills that you can take away from your youth exchange experience. And you're gonna have to communicate to a lot of people, good and bad, throughout your entire life. I've noticed that a lot in college right now, just being able to express myself and defend myself, and also really stand up for myself, is something that is really important. And it's something that you might not think about now, but it's something you should consider into taking into account into the future, in really putting yourself out there and putting yourself forward and making your feelings heard, and also making sure no one can step over you or step on you. Yeah, does that make sense? Sweet.
Yeah. And also just making sure that you're being honest about your feelings. Don't hold it in, and be open with every like your YEO and not yeah, that's what it's called. And like your YEO, your host family. Also, I felt like host siblings in Germany, at least, I know that my host siblings had all gone in exchange, and so they understood where I was coming from and understood a lot of my feelings. And so just take the opportunity to be to be open to everybody, because different people can offer different pieces of advice, and also just be honest about how you're feeling, because there will be times when you don't want to be, but you have to tell everybody around you how you're feeling, so that way the situation gets better.
In terms of what you do to cope with stress, something that I've done and I've started to do during this period right now of my life is focus a lot on like meditation, yoga, and like mindfulness. I think that's also ties a lot into how this can be a moment and a phase and a period of self-reflection, as what Ashlyn mentioned before.
So some healthy coping skills, some more broad concepts here. Stay in the present moment. Don't dwell too much. This is especially important on exchange, because you always have that date where things end, and you can really get caught up in that date. Like, oh, I only have like a month left, or I've been here for exactly 100 days. Like, some people keep track of how many days they have, how many days they've been in their host country and how many days they have left. And sometimes that can get really stressful, just looking at those numbers. Like, oh my gosh, I only have 50 days left, or oh my gosh, I've already been here for 200 days. Like, I encourage you to not get caught up in the numbers and just stay in the present moment. Really focus on what is happening now. Focus on making the most of your day, because it goes by so much faster than you think it will. At the beginning, it feels slow, but as time goes on, it just feels like it's going faster and faster, and it feels like time is almost slipping through your hands. So stay in the present moment, focus on what's going on now, make the most of every single day, every single minute. Also, don't pressure yourself, though. If you do need a mental health day, if you need to relax, if you want to just be more low-key and not be doing something every second, that's okay too, because that's also a source of stress. If you feel a pressure to always be doing something, that can also be stressful. So
yeah, I would say on my exchange, I felt like it was really daunting I felt like some days I had wasted days where I didn't do anything, or if I just hung out with my host family. But now that I'm back, I realize like some of the best times were just hanging out with my host family, and just had like, even just those little things, playing Uno with your host family, highly recommend it, can be some of like the best memories.
yes, definitely. Learn to deal with the unexpected. Stay flexible. Blessed be the flexible, for they never get bent out of shape. It's true. You are going to deal with things that you don't think you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have unexpected situations, some good, some bad. You just have to be flexible to things, especially when it comes to different cultures that you're going to be seeing. You be flexible, be open-minded. Yeah, it's really good to just look at what other people are doing in your host country and just kind of use that as a gauge on how to assimilate, how to fit in. And your happiness is your choice. You can choose to focus on the things that are stressing you out, the bad things, but you can also choose to focus on the beautiful, lovely, wonderful things that you are going to discover in your host country. So keep that in mind. And the 4 agreements: be impeccable about your words, be honest, be kind, don't take anything too personal. There are a lot of things that if you just take them at face value with no outside or no background knowledge on culture or anything, then they may seem to be, and that kind of goes along with the next one. You may make assumptions about it, but make sure to ask questions to people, like, why do you do this in your culture? Why, blah, blah, blah. So you don't make any assumptions or take anything the wrong way that may just be a cultural difference or a difference in communication. Yeah, and try your best to understand others in every circumstance. I can guarantee you people aren't out to get you. There are just some miscommunications and stuff. So yeah, just make sure to not assume things, assume the worst, or be negative about things. If you want to do this one.
Yeah. So obviously with going abroad, there are risks about everything that could happen. Some of them being theft. You have to keep an eye on all your belongings, especially when traveling, especially when in big cities. Just like you would here in any big city, just keep an eye on all your personal belongings, especially things like passports. You should keep that in a safe place at all times. Illness or injury, again, communication is key for this, and it can happen. People can get sick, people can get hurt, and what you have to do is just communicate how you're feeling. If you are really, really sick, you need to tell somebody that you are really, really sick. And if you are really, really hurt, you need to tell somebody that you are really, really hurt. So that way you can get the help that you need, and you can go to the hospital if you need to go to the hospital. Because if you don't do that and you just say like, oh, I'm fine, like things could get worse, and then things can escalate and get worse and worse and worse. And then accidents happen. It's unavoidable. You just need to take responsibility when things are your fault. Communication again, travel difficulties, always know your RYEO's number, have that number with you, have your host family number with you at all times, and yeah, do your best to keep like a power bank on you or something, and try to keep your phone charged, because
Yes.
there are so many travel difficulties. Getting on the wrong bus, taking it to a city 2 hours away happened to me. My phone was at 1% the whole time, and I managed to be smart about it and keep my family up to date about what was happening. But if I hadn't been able to, I don't know how I would have gotten home. And so things like that are really, really important. Keep your phone charged, get a power bank, and just be prepared to make mistakes about getting on the wrong train, buses, all of those fun things. Harassment. Different countries come with different cultures, as well as just the normal day-to-day things that can happen with being a younger person. You need to be able to communicate about it though, and speak up when you feel really uncomfortable in those situations. Definitely find somebody who you trust if something like that does happen, and tell them about it. And in some ways you can gauge if it was just a miscommunication or if you are genuinely feeling unsafe. Find somebody who you can talk to that about and communicate about it as soon as it happens. Don't wait to see if it repeats itself. If you feel uncomfortable in a situation, you feel like you're being harassed, go and talk to your trusted person about it. Natural disaster, it happens. I don't really know. Does anybody else have something to say about that?
I don't know. I think a pandemic is I feel like that kind of stuff can count too. It's just
Yeah.
the unpredictable things that nature does to us. It doesn't matter where you are.
Right.
Although that is more common in some, a natural disaster is more common in some places than others. But I don't know.
I can also say that in a natural disaster, Rotary is going to be your first line of help. The Rotary Club is their number one priority is keeping the students safe. So if we had several years back when Japan had that tsunami, we had a lot of students in Japan, and they were all unaffected by the tsunami, but Japan did really good at communicating that everyone was safe, and they actually ended up sending kids home because they weren't sure of how long, with the nuclear disaster, how that was going to impact the students. So they ended everyone's exchange pretty quickly shortly after that happened. But Rotary is very, very good at trying to keep the students safe. That's number one priority.
Additionally, that would be a great time also to call your family and just check in with them, because they're probably also worrying about you, and that's just a pristine opportunity.
Yeah, similar with political unrest, it can happen, and yeah, Rotary will be there for you if something does happen, if you are in danger, but just be cognizant of the political climate that you are in, and be cognizant of just general things that are happening in your host country, because if you're not and you say something offensive, that can come across very bad to everybody around you. And so just keep up with the news, keep up with what's happening, and yeah, be conscientious about everything. Drug and alcohol abuse. Those are two of the Ds. It's in some countries, especially for our age group, it's a very popular thing to drink and to do drugs, and for the people there, for the kids there, when it's their home country, they don't face the same repercussions that you do as an exchange student. And so you need to make the right decisions when it comes to drugs and alcohol, and knowing that the repercussions that come along with it, and the repercussions of making those decisions.
I'd also like to say too, on the drug and alcohol abuse, it may be very common for the students or for the people who are in that country to do that as just a pastime. And to like what Bella said, if you guys got caught doing it, your repercussions are severe. Like you could be sent home for doing something that everyone else is doing, but if you get caught doing it, you might have ended your exchange. So just because everyone else is doing it and it seems like it's a normal thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that it applies to you. So, and some countries are a little bit more lenient about that, and others are very strict about it. So my best advice to all of you is just say no, just don't do it. Then you won't ever have to worry about getting yourself into that situation.
Yeah, and finally, physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. So kind of what I talked about before with harassment, having a person of trust who you go to and who you tell that you feel uncomfortable about anything that's happening, whether you assume that it is cultural or not, you should speak up to somebody about it. And you just need to find somebody who you feel okay talking about it with, and know that it's okay to talk about if it happens to you. Talk about it with somebody who you trust, so that way the situation can be fixed, and so that way you don't have to suffer.
I also would like to say, we've been referencing this person that you trust often in these topics. I feel like it's very important to find that person, seek out that person, whether it's a person in your club, whether it's someone in your host family, a teacher. It's really important to find that person that you trust early on in your exchange, because they can be there to kind of rescue you from a bad situation, especially like if there's a misunderstanding with say your host family, and they just don't feel like you're trying to fit in with them, and they're just not happy with you being in their house. If you had someone that you could trust hear your side of the story and kind of help you in these situations, it can mean a lot to improve a host family situation, or other problems that you might have. It's because a lot of times it might be your word against whoever you're having problems with, and if you have someone there to stick up for you and to be your the person that you can trust and will stick up for you, it's going to make a world of difference. So when you get on exchange, try to find that person and develop that relationship with them as soon as you can, because it could prove to be beneficial to have at some point.
Yeah, for me, I was really close with my YEO, and I was honest with him from the beginning about my host family situation and about everything that was happening, because I did have issues with my first host family that I wasn't sure if they were cultural or not. And at first I was like, it's fine, I'll wait it out. But then it got to a point where I couldn't just wait it out, and I wanted to leave my host family. And so since my YEO knew that I'd had some issues with them, right away he was open to letting me change host families, found me like a new host family right away, and that's, you just, from the beginning, it's very important to establish those relationships. Okay. Sexual harassment. So the definition: sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. It's a textbook definition of sexual harassment. So things that can like apply to this is sexual jokes, references to sexual acts. I can't read this whole thing. Verbal abuse of sexual nature. Displaying sexually suggestive. Is there something under that?
Objects, pictures, or drawings.
Okay.
Sexual leering or whistling, inappropriate physical contact, obscene language or gestures, and suggestive or insulting comments.
So by this, it's just not if somebody comes and touches you inappropriately, or if somebody asks you explicitly for a sexual act. All of these things qualify as sexual harassment. And if they happen to you, you should speak up about it to the person that you trust. And know that it's not just a cultural thing that you can sweep under the rug and ignore and forget about, but it's actually something that is valid and you're allowed to feel upset about that.
You don't have to go necessarily over the definition. I think with these two definitions, I think it's really important to acknowledge that they can take both sexual abuse and sexual harassment can take many different forms that you might not be cognizant of, but but these issues are valid and your experiences are valid. And Rotary is there, as Tony said before, Rotary is there to make sure that you feel safe, and that's their number one priority. And there also is a lot of different connections throughout the entire Rotary network, be that home and abroad, that are there to support you and make sure that your health and your well-being are kept to the highest standard, and that no one can take that away from you.
And just to add on to that, like, your safety and well-being comes before having fun and having a great time, because if you are not safe and if you are not doing well, you won't be able to have as great of a time as you would like to.
And I also think with different cultures, how people react to, like, when they greet you, some cultures, they hug and kiss, where we might feel like that's a little bit too close to us, or you might not be comfortable with that. There's parts that are cultural, and then there's parts that are definitely not cultural, and if they make you feel really uncomfortable, you just need to let people know that. And it might, if you're going to a culture like Italy where they hug and kiss, and you're not comfortable with that, it may take you a while to get adjusted to that, but I bet over time you probably won't feel as restricted by it, I guess. So yeah, just kind of keep that in mind, that there could be very different cultural norms, which on our end might look like sexual harassment to some people, but in other countries it's just what people do. So it's kind of something you'll have to learn when you get there to figure out what is cultural and what is harassment.
And also,
you can always ask.
Fine line.
Yeah,
Yes.
And also do some research before you leave. Make sure you know what a typical greeting there is. Look into that. It's really not that hard to find if you just Google your country and a typical greeting and that type of stuff. So look into that before you go, so that way when your host family picks you up from the airport and they try to kiss you, that you're not like, oh my God, what is happening?
And now before we go on, are there any questions? I know this is a lot. I know this is also a very heavy topic, but this is something that you all should be aware of, and you know that we take this very seriously throughout all of Rotary and throughout each district. Okay.
All right. So this is very, very helpful. These are the emergency numbers for countries in case you need them. If your country is not on this list, you can also look it up at some point. But make sure you have it with you. Once you have your host family's number or contact information, make sure you have it with you. And like we kind of mentioned before, make sure that this is accessible to you, even if your phone is dead or not working. Like I always put it inside like the back of my phone case. I had like a slip of paper that I had underneath here that had my host family's numbers and anything that I needed to contact. I actually, so I had a situation in India where I had to call emergency services and I did not know the number. And it was actually, for some reason, it was very hard for me to find online. I had to call up the local Indian first and ask them, and then call from there. So that was definitely a waste of time. And I wish I would have known right off the bat. I wish I would have had it with me, the number. So please, 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 please take note of this number. Hopefully you'll never have to use it, but if you do, you really want to have it. It's not 911 in every country. So yeah, make sure you have all of those numbers with you at all times. And this is just a list. It's not everyone, but it can really be, like, it can change per person, who you trust the most and who you're the most comfortable talking to. It can be teachers at your school, your friends, host parents, host family, your counselor, some higher ups in Rotary. These are all people within your host country that you can talk to if you are feeling stressed, if you have some sort of issue, you need to talk about things. Yeah, your host siblings, like really anyone that you can talk to. I would avoid calling home right away, especially if it's due to homesickness. That might make you feel worse. Actually, it probably will make you feel worse. It's important to really assimilate into your host country's culture and really get close with the people that you meet there. And there's so many people. Rotary is there to help you, your host family. There's so many people that are rooting for you and want to help you during your exchange. You will not have a problem finding someone who you can trust. All right, so as for physical health and hygiene, weight gain is normal, first of all. That is one thing that a lot of students kind of struggle with during exchanges. Oh, I'm gaining weight because I'm eating all of this food from my host country because it's so good. Eat all of the food. Eat all of the food, please, because you're gonna come back from your exchange and you're gonna miss the food and you're gonna wish you would have eaten more. You'll drop the weight once you get back home. You can, work to keep it down if you do some sort of like fitness, physical activity, if you're really feeling that bad about it. But your exchange pounds probably gonna happen. Don't worry about it. YOLO. Eat food.
Yeah, I gained a lot of weight when I was on exchange. I lost all of it within 6 months of coming home. Like, enjoy everything. Like, Germans ate so much bread, and what I miss the most is German bread. Like, enjoy everything, because when you come back, you're not going to be able to have it every day like you did there. And don't try to limit yourself, just enjoy it, because you only get to enjoy it for a certain amount of time.
Yep. And you can join some sort of fitness class, sport. Like I said, something that was like unique to my host country was like Indian dance, classical dance. So I joined a class like that, and that was very good for my physical health while also learning about the culture. So that was like a kind of double whammy. That was awesome. And yeah, you can ride a bike, go on walks, just really spend time outside. I would bring a bottle of each of your bathroom products, like shampoo, conditioner, like just a bottle, maybe even a travel sized one. You don't need to bring a year's worth of anything. First of all, it's way more exciting to be using toothpaste from your host country. I don't know why, but it just is to be using products from there. A lot of the time it's even cheaper than it is here. And there's no use using your suitcase space for bringing a bunch of stuff that you can get there. And then be considerate. One thing about hygiene is be considerate about your host country's shower norms. Some countries shower multiple times a day. When I was in India in my third host family, I was not allowed to eat any food or really talk to anyone before or until after I had taken a shower that morning. It was like mandatory that I had to shower every morning before I ate anything. They would not let me. So that was just a cultural thing. You just need to make sure that you're conscious of that and that you're following norms like that. I know there have been exchange students before in the past who have just been problematic, not followed shower norms, like that they didn't want to shower multiple times a day, and then they ended up getting into unnecessary trouble in their host country just because they weren't following like simple norms. So just pay attention to that.
Adding on to that, one thing that was different for me in the beginning was how often my host family washed clothes. And so they didn't wash clothes as often as I was used to at home. And so I would like put all my jeans in the dirty laundry pile, and then I wouldn't have any pants to wear because they weren't doing laundry as often as I was used to it being done. And so my host sister came to me and was like, don't put your jeans in the laundry. We're not going to wash them. Like you can wear them like 5 more times before they actually need to be washed. And so just little things like that, just either ask or notice it. I would recommend just asking and just say, hey, how often do you guys do laundry? How often should I shower? What are the norms for these types of things? Because they're different in every country.
And those, I think some of those types of questions are on the first night questions that you can ask your host family. I don't know if you guys have the list already, but I know you can find it online, the Rotary first night questions. Those are super helpful. Just sit down with your host family and really get like get a grip on what they expect of you. It's a really good way to like gauge how things are going to be and the expectations that they might have of you. It was the exact opposite for me in India. Since India is so hot and they sweat a lot there, they wash their clothes every single day. And I had a school uniform that I had to wear. And so every day when I got home from school, I had to take it off immediately and put it in the laundry machine so that my host family could wash it and have it ready for me by the next day of school. So yeah, definitely be conscientious of that.
Did someone just put a message in there, or is that just for me?
No, it's a link to the first night questions.
Oh,
Yep,
sweet.
that's me.
Okay. I was like, isn't something like private or anything that I shouldn't be showing? With that too, also like this might be like a dumb thing to say, but you also should ask if you don't know how to do your laundry now, you should learn how to do it before you go. I know how to do my laundry, and I know some people didn't know how to do their laundry and had to learn really fast when they entered their host country, but that's something that, like, you should know before you like graduate high school too. Just like a good life skill. So yeah, cool. Great.
All right, so things that you can be doing now, and especially things you can be doing now if you have some extra time on your hands, if you're not going to school anymore or in the house anymore or literally doing anything anymore, you can use this time to hop on Duolingo for like 10 minutes a day, start learning the language, go on like Culturegram or whatever, look at, study the culture, customs. It's like super cool to really hype yourself up, go on YouTube and look at past exchange students who have made videos about exchange in that country, like videos about their Euro tours or that kind of thing. That's something that really just like will get you excited, and you can kind of get an idea of what sort of things you can expect.
One thing I did was I looked up stereotypes about the US and like Americans to see kind of like what people were expecting, and it's just like fun. A lot of the stereotypes that I like came across, nobody actually applied to me, but again, it's just like a fun thing to do, so that way you do have some idea what you're getting into.
I would also have a general understanding of politics in this country, how things work, just so that if you do end up getting questions about it, you're able to represent your country well enough to be able to give like accurate answers on basic things. You don't have to turn yourself into a politician or anything, but just have a general grasp on that. Another thing you can do, there's Facebook groups out there that are for like exchange students. There's like one called like Worldwide Exchange Students, and I think there should be one like they make separate ones like per year, like exchange 2020 to 2021 or whatever. So you can join groups and then connect with other people from other parts of the world who are also going to your country. Maybe start a group chat, start talking with the people who you might meet once you're in your host country. That's a really cool way to like share information with each other, get hyped up about things together. Yeah, and it's super fun. Just in the groups, there's all these like exchange memes and stuff like that. So if you want to join one of those, yeah, you can also let me know. I can like invite people to the group or add people to the group. I don't know. Are you guys in it? Daniel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the first time meeting everyone, because I know like me and my group chat, we were talking with each other like a couple months before we went to Denmark. And then we all finally met at our introduction camp, and that was just like super hype, super fun. Yeah. Yeah,
I was also like in really close contact. I had good friends already before I even arrived in my host countries. I was already Skyping people often, and we were texting each other when we were packing and that kind of stuff. So it's really cool to connect up with other people that you're going to meet later, or people who are just going to the same country as you. And you can also use that to connect up with other like past exchange students who are in your district, in your city, in your country, who you can talk to and ask them any specific questions that you might have when you're packing or when you're preparing to go on exchange. So you can get the advice from people who have already done it before you.
And you also have us, Rotex.
Yeah, you can always...
There are a bunch of us, and we all have gone to different places, so I think it's also a really awesome resource.
Yep, you can feel free to reach out to us at any time. We don't bite.
We're here for you guys. We really just want to help you guys have a great time.
Tony,
and answer any questions.
Hey, Tony.
Yes?
Would it be helpful for us if we sent you like a list of current Rotex members and like where they went in their contact information, so that maybe you could pass it on to the Outbounds?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, cool. Well, there you go.
Awesome. Yeah, and then just kind of like what we said before, learn the rules, expectations, and kind of just have a feel for the culture. Maybe you can watch some movies that take place in your host country so you can kind of see like how that works. So yeah. And then lastly, here's just some other resources that I threw in that are super cool that I think will help you. So the first one is 1 second every day. I don't know if any of you guys also did this, but I did this. The app actually was not free at the time when I did it. I think I paid $2 or $3 for it. Totally worth it though, and apparently now it's free. So all you do, you can do this in your normal camera on your phone. You literally just like take a picture. I would do like, or take a video, 1 second, 2 seconds of just what's going on. If you're sitting at a picnic with friends, you're just having dinner with your host family, just a short video, and then the app will show you all the videos for the day. You choose your 1 second clip, and then by the end of your exchange, if you do it every day, I mean, you don't have to do it every day, you can do it just whenever you feel like doing it, then you'll have a clip of like every day of your exchange and what you did, even the little things. It's the coolest thing ever. I would like totally recommend it. Mine is up on YouTube if you guys like want to look at what it's like, the 1 second every day. It's super cool. Headspace, Daniel had mentioned earlier, talking about doing some meditation, some mindfulness. This can be super, super, super helpful if you're feeling stressed, you feel like you have too much going on, you just need like a minute to yourself. Headspace, you can, I think it does, you can pay if you want to, but I think it's free. I think it's, you can do as much as you want for free as well. And it's just, you can do it at any time, any place. You can choose how long you want your meditation to be. If you want it to just be like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If you want a guided meditation, you just want to do it alone. There's like different themes. Like I think there's some like specific for coping with stress. So yeah, that kind of stuff. And then this also really helped me. You'll probably want to get one of these. It's just a money exchange rate converter. It's really useful to have on your phone. You don't need Wi-Fi for it. And you just put in whatever it is in your one currency. And then it'll show what it is in dollars, so you know how much you're spending. Because at the beginning, especially in your first month, you're like, what is 100 rupees? Like, how much is that, you know? So especially if it's not like super easy to convert. So
even with the euro, it can get like hard because you're like, oh, like it's basically 1-to-1, but it's not. It's a euro is worth more than $1, and it adds up quickly. Like keeping track of that stuff is important.
I am totally guilty of that. I wish I would have had this app when I was in Austria. I mostly used it when I was in India because the exchange was not something that was easier for me to do in my head. But yeah, definitely I was one of those people who was like, oh, euro is about the same, like, and that definitely, I definitely lost money on that when I think about it. So yeah, use something like this. All right, so if you have any questions, you if you don't want to say it now, you can email us at rotex6250@gmail.com. But if you have any questions right now,
Go for it.
Go for it. You don't have to be scared.
We want to hear them.
This is like low key. We're being laid back.
No question is a bad question.
I have a really random question. So I'm just basing this off of like my sister's experience. She she went to Chile and she prepared by, trying to learn Spanish, obviously. And when she was there, she just didn't understand anything at all. What is that those first few weeks like? Is it like, how do you handle that kind of thing when you just can't understand anything? Like if that happens?
It's gonna happen.
Yep.
So I kind of had a similar problem because I had learned German for a year, maybe 2 years before. Yeah, 2 years before I went to Austria. And Austria has they speak with a dialect that is pretty different from the German that I would have learned in school. And even when you learn, when you're learning your language now, you're learning it pretty slow, but then when you go to a host country, you realize that they speak their language really fast. They're not gonna enunciate every single word for you. And so it really just takes time. Never stop trying to listen. Your mind is taking it in even when you think you're understanding nothing. You really are learning.
Yeah, and also just learn the phrases, I don't understand, I don't speak whatever language. Those come in a lot. Those are very helpful. And just, even if your pronunciation's horrible, it helps whoever you're talking to know. Or even saying oh, could you speak slow, more slowly, learning how to say that, or just slower, please, anything like that. Just a few of those key phrases of I don't know, I don't understand are very helpful.
Yeah.
For those of you who aren't in the Zoom group chat, just the little messaging thing right now, Lizzie asked a great question. What month would you generally find out where in the country you'll be going? Yeah, any time between now and June. It depends on not only the country, but also each district. Everyone does things a little bit different. So it depends on finding clubs to host you, finding host families, stuff like that, getting schools to take you on. So yeah, but from now until June, it's pretty exciting.
So for the Rotex students, do you guys want to say when did you guys find out where you were going? In the time frame, if you remember?
I know I found out that what district I was going to in February, and then I found out where I was going in May. So there was like months where I had no clue where, like, who my host family was. But in middle of May, I want to say, I found out who my host family was and what town I was going to.
Yeah, I found out first, both times I found out my district first. And then once you find out your district, then you can go to like the district's website and you can see what boundaries that district makes up. So then you kind of know, you can kind of ballpark what part of the country you're going to be going to. Austria only had 2 districts, so I only knew for a few months what half of the country I was going to be in. But in India, when I found out my district, the district was 1 state, so I knew what state I was in. And then, yeah, I think it was like April or May when I found out. First time I got a friend request from my host brother, and I was friends with him on Facebook, but I didn't know he was my host brother. And then I got my guarantee form, and my host dad had the same last name as him. I was like, do you know this man? He's like, that's my dad, and I'm your host brother. And I was like, okay. So that's how I found out.
Yeah. Hi guys. I'm Ellie.
Oh, hey, Ellie.
I went on exchange last year to Italy, so I'll talk more about that later, but I didn't know like basically anything at all. I just knew I was going to Italy. Then like probably halfway through May or like the beginning of June, I figured out everything. Like they told me like my family, my school, like everything like that. So I think it just really depends. So.
I found out at the lacrosse district conference. I got an email there, and I was like, when am I going to find out? Are they not going to take me? But then I got my email then, which is pretty cool. Okay, one thing that we didn't touch on was a little bit more about homesickness. I think everyone will experience it differently. Sometimes you might not even have it, but I think just if you are experiencing stuff like that, if you might be feeling that you're in like a rut or a hole, just trying to make sure that you're staying active, taking advantage of every opportunity, hanging out with your host parents, host family, hanging out with school friends, just trying to really get out there and explore the world.
One thing that I had was obviously nowhere else in the world celebrates Thanksgiving, and right around Thanksgiving I saw that all my friends were getting like had off of school and were like celebrating Thanksgiving, and I didn't realize it, but I was really homesick. And then one of my teachers asked me, Ella, how are you doing? And I just started crying because I was like, I want to celebrate Thanksgiving. I want to be at home with my friends and family. And so what I did was I got my closest friends together, brought them over to my host family's house, and cooked a traditional American Thanksgiving dinner for them. I made them an apple pie. I made them green beans. I made them everything that I could think of. And just doing stuff like that really helped me feel better and not have that complete homesickness.
Yep. I did the same thing when I was in Austria. My host mom let me take off school for the day on Thanksgiving, and we spent the entire day making Thanksgiving dinner together. And it was super, super fun. And I kind of like explained Thanksgiving to my host family. We all sat around and ate the dinner. And I gave a little speech, a toast at the beginning, and told them how much I was like thankful for them, and I started crying like a ton, but it was super, super fun. So yeah, if you don't know it, like I would ask your family right now to like have the recipes with you if you plan on doing something like that. That would be super cool. But I kind of had to struggle because I didn't really know how to make it. So I was like FaceTiming my mom while I was like making this stuff with my host mom. So have the recipes.
Oh, also, if you like baking, bring along measuring cups because some countries don't use those. And using some random bowl and being like, oh, I think this is a cup isn't always as effective as you think it is.
It's true.
And also, like, I had host families. Like, I really like to bake. That was something I did with my host families. It was a lot of fun. A lot of my host families ended up buying, like, the cup measuring system because they like the recipes that I showed them so much. And so that could also be a really good gift if you like baking and plan on baking with them.
Also, bring a lot of like boxed Annie's mac and cheese with you. That
Yes.
stuff's like a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Yes, do it. Bring the mac and cheese.
Yeah, definitely.
Also,
Are there
this
any-
is another random, super random wait, hold up. I'm gonna grab some stuff real quick.
While she's doing that, are there any questions? Oh gosh, Sharon. From Sharon Clavins or Sharon K. Lavins, that is a great piece of advice. Yeah, just trying to listen as much as possible to native speakers of any language is very valuable.
Music helps a lot.
Music
too.
helps. Yeah, in Spotify or like Apple Music or whatever you guys listen to nowadays, you can find how different countries their own like trends on what's like hot right now. And that's how I got exposed to like a lot of my music in
Yeah.
terms of like Danish, like
Yep.
rap and hip hop and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot better than you'd expect, which is awesome because then you can come in and they'll be like, oh my gosh, you know, blah blah blah, sick.
Yeah.
Yep. Spotify has like a top 50 or top 100 per country. So just like search your country and play the playlist. It's fun. Okay, so what I grabbed, these are some of my, so I wrote excessively. So you don't have to do this, but these were some of the notebooks that I filled, and they're like super, super cute. I got them all at, I think Ross or TJ Maxx. I think they both have them. They're like super cute, like travel themed notebooks that are just like super, I don't know, they're so cute. They're all like travel themed. This says let's get lost. This one says the world is calling and I must go. Yeah. So if stores are open at some point, I would definitely recommend TJ Maxx for really cute like travel notebooks. If you want to bring some, those are like, I love them, and it was super nice to have something that was like really travel themed, and yeah, to keep track of your days. And you don't have to write essays every day like I did. Actually, please don't do that. just like little things like I had a picnic with some friends, or I went to this person's birthday party, or I like whatever, just like little things so that you remember.
Especially when you're traveling, I feel like when I was on Euro tour, I was like, oh, like I'm just gonna live like every single day and not like take note of any of this. But like there was one day in Paris where I actually wrote, like I actually took time out of my day. I sat down and I wrote like a page in a notebook, and looking back on that, like I'm so happy I did that because it was just nice to look back and see how much I was enjoying it and just to look back at those memories. And so when you're traveling, yes, be present, but at the same time, take some time, notice everything around you and how great it is.
I feel like writing helped me remember my exchange more, because if you think about it, even now, when you go to bed at night, do you like think about everything you did that day? I feel like when you think, like usually probably not, but when you're writing through a journal, like you go and like retrace your steps of the day. Like you are like, oh yeah, and then I took a train here and I did this, and then I went back home, I had this, oh yeah, I had this conversation with this person. And I feel like just thinking about that every night and then like writing it down just really like reinforces that. So I don't know, I feel like I remember every day of my exchange because of that. And if I have any questions of like, what was I doing 3 years ago today, I can find the notebook that was like for that time, find the date and be like, oh wow, I did that, you know? It's really cool.
Okay, quickly. We're gonna be starting our next session in like 2 minutes. Grab some water, stretch, stand up, walk around. This one's gonna be more so about our own personalized exchange survival guide, brought to you by Ellie.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
Ellie, why does it say Zach R on your thing?
That's my little brother's name, so I don't know why he would have a Zoom account on my laptop, but
Oh yeah, you can change it. Let's change
you
my name.
can. How do you do that?
There's like a little like ellipses next to like the top right of your video, like the dot dot dot.
Wait, shoot, I just got.
Joey, great question. Yes. Even like putting like let's say Instagram or Facebook in your home country, that's gonna just give you some like easy exposure. I still have like my keyboard in Danish. It just kind of sticks. Also like military time too. Oh, that's also something you could probably
Yes.
think about too. Is something
that.
Oh,
just like a very like easy change, and it's a lot easier than like the non-military time. I don't know what it's called.
I did not have success when changing my phone to Hindi. I would not do that, but German was great. I already had some background knowledge. I feel like you should do that at a point where you know enough that you can like get yourself back into English if you need to, and like if you have some sort of emergency, like you're able to like get things done even if it's in your host country's language. But yeah, I would change your phone.
Oh yeah, also big virtual round of applause for Ashlyn and Bella. They did great in this presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate the support.
Yeah.
I love my fans.
Okay, Ellie, you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Sweet, let's pull it up here.
Awesome. Alrighty, so this part of the presentation is called the Exchange Student Survival Guide, made by us. You guys are gonna eventually get a book called the Exchange Student Survival Guide that talks about some of the things you'll go through on exchange and advice like that, but we thought we'd make our own that's more personalized and has more of our own experiences. Okay, awesome. All right, what to expect. So the months going up to exchange are probably some of the like most confusing and scary, but also exciting because I don't know, you don't really know what to expect at all. And like you'll get a lot of advice from like Rotary, like random people, your friends, your family, they'll all tell you stuff about what your exchange is going to be like, and it can be a little overwhelming, but I would say just remember to stay flexible, and every exchange is unique. So yeah, I'm going to talk about some of our experiences. All right, Daniel, do you want me to talk about this or do you want to talk about it?
It probably makes more sense that I talk about it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, yeah, so I went to Denmark in 2017, 2018. I think something that you can see a lot is like it's really easy to make a lot of exchange friends, but in doing so, spending a lot of time with these people that you're going to get really close with, you might also sacrifice time that you could have spent with people from your like high school class, Rotarians, your host family. So I think something that I became more cognizant of at the end of my exchange was really thinking about, oh, how could I have put more effort into making and developing those relationships? There's going to be like an opportunity cost to every different decision that you make, but I think being aware of all the different opportunities that you do have and taking advantage of everything is something that I have taken into my life a lot, like now in terms of just practicing that reflectiveness. Yeah, and like how did I deal with this problem? At the beginning, it just constantly pushing myself into different like conversations, different events, kind of like inviting myself until people started inviting me to things. And then in terms of what I wish I knew going into exchange, you wouldn't expect this, but you're gonna get really tired after going to classes for like the first month or two, because you're just subconsciously translating a different language when your entire like high school instruction will be in your host country's language. I took a lot of naps at the beginning. I would try to avoid that, but it just depends on how you adapt to your own host country. And then in terms of would I change anything about my experience, I think this goes for a lot of students, and you're gonna hear this a lot.
personally, I wouldn't change anything. I think that each of the different things that I experienced, good and bad, was mine, and that's something that I can keep with me for the rest of my life. And I think that I wouldn't change it just because that, like, the person that I am today is because of all the different situations that I gotten myself into and all the awesome times that I had throughout my life. Yeah. These are just some points of advice. Something that I do want to mention, actually, I gotta say this actually in front of the entire Grand Rapids stage when I got back. So I actually got in trouble with Rotary during my Euro tour, and I was sent home from Euro tour. And you kind of don't expect this to happen because you kind of feel like invincible almost when you are abroad. I was caught drinking at that moment. It sucked. It was terrible. That was like some of the last times that I was able to see some of my really good friends from exchange. So I think just being aware of how your actions do have consequences and making really thoughtful decisions and really being smart about every move that you make and trying to stay out of trouble with that. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Awesome. All right, so next I'm going to talk about Rosalie. She went to Argentina last year. For her, she said one of the most challenging parts of her exchange was like overcoming the like expectations she had for her exchange, and like also like comparing like her exchange to others on social media, which is definitely like a big problem for a lot of exchange students, I think, because a lot of people like they put out on their social media like only the good things going on during their exchange or just like life in general. So it can be really hard like if you're like sitting in your like room by yourself, like seeing like people going out having fun and you're like, what am I doing wrong? But like it's important to remember that like Rosalie said, like everyone has these issues and like exchange is not perfect. She said she wished she knew before going into exchange that everyone's different and everyone's experience is different, and really comparing yourself isn't worth it. Like her example was, if someone's fluent in 3 months, like it doesn't mean that like you're like a terrible person or like you suck or anything. It just means that like they learn at a different pace. So keep that in mind. She said, she said the thing she would change is she wished she was like braver at the beginning, which I definitely agree with. People are probably most interested in you when they first meet you. So like Rosalie said, try your best to talk to people and like make plans and stuff. Rosalie's advice was think about any issues you're having from an outside perspective. Like if you're having trouble making friends, think of like how long it took to make friends here in the United States, because it doesn't usually happen that you make a best friend in like your first weeks or months knowing them. Also, she says don't be afraid to reach out. If you're in a bad situation, you can change it, and don't be afraid to say something. All right, next I'm going to talk about Miki. She went to Peru last year, which was 1819. I know she had a lot of challenges with her first host family. They weren't close. There's a lot of small things. They didn't really get along. She decided to wait it out before she switched to her next host family. And she said she appreciated what her first host family did, even if they didn't get along the best, and try and learn. This is definitely important to remember. Like, if you think you can like stick with that host family, then like try your best to like bond with your host family. But if there are like big problems, don't be afraid to talk to Rotary. What did she wish she knew? You can't really expect anything. Just like in general, I think obviously we're all going to have lots of expectations for our exchange years, but it's I mean, you can't expect what it's going to be like. It's pretty hard to predict. She said she would not change anything. Yeah. Awesome. Her advice was, well, when it comes to host families, there's a good chance you won't be a perfect fit for every single one of them. You should try to get past the differences, but like she said, trust your gut. If it's not like working at all, there's like problems, switch. You can always talk to Rotary and they're always there to help you. She said, okay. She said learning to self-advocate is really important because you'll need to stick up for yourself because your parents or your close friends from the United States, they're not there for you. So you might have to learn how to talk to Rotary and say, like, this is what I need, which is a really important skill to learn. Awesome. Bella.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I got this, don't worry. One of the most challenging things for me was definitely making friends. Just because at the beginning, a lot of the people who I was close with were the people who could speak English, not the people who I necessarily would be best friends with. And so then as my language abilities developed, I became friends with different people. But yeah, I really put myself out there and tried as hard as I could to speak German and made people speak German with me, because a lot of people just wanted to practice their English with me. And a lot of people were like, wow, like even in February, I had one of my teachers come up to me and say something like, just speak to me in English. And I was like, you know, I can speak German now and I would much rather that we speak in German because I'm here to learn German, not to better your English. And just being somewhat blunt about that really helped me learn the language, and then people were less scared to talk to me because they knew that I could speak German. And also I really reached out to everybody in my class who I was close with and said, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to do stuff? Because a lot of the times, like, they didn't think to make plans, or like I remember a group of my friends and we started walking our dogs together, and like that was just a good like hour or two of my day that we would spend together, and just doing little things like that to immerse myself more was really helpful. And yeah, also we've talked about this already, about like taking advantage of every day, and I really went into exchange expecting every single day to be crazy and this wonderful adventure. But in reality, it wasn't. I had a lot of downtime, and I had a lot of time just sitting with my host family. And sometimes at the beginning, I felt really bad about that. I felt like I wasn't making the best of my experience, but in reality, I was. And I loved my host. Like by the end of it, I loved playing Uno with my host family. I loved watching Germany's Next Top Model with my host family, and just little things like that just helped me feel closer. And at the end of it, I really realized that those were the more important memories for me personally. And so one thing that I would change is I had a really unique situation where in my district, I had to switch host families, which meant that I had to switch schools. And I had to switch schools around this time of the year, so around March, and I wish I hadn't, just because at this point in my exchange, I was really starting to make friends, and I was really starting to get close with everybody in my community. And then I did harbor a little resentment with my next host family, and I think if I would change something, I really would go into that with more of an open mind, and also just have been more I guess, yeah, more open-minded and more willing for that change to happen. But at the end of the day, I do wish that I hadn't changed schools.
This is Tony. I just wanted to let all the outbounds know changing schools is very unusual. It's not something that happens or shouldn't, I mean, it's something that shouldn't happen at all, but it sounds like it does happen occasionally, but it's not a very common thing. So when you go on exchange, you're going to be at one school the entire year for the most part.
Yeah, like I said, that was a very unique situation. I was the only one in my year who had to do that. That's just my personal experience. And yeah, my biggest advice is do not be afraid to try new things and make mistakes. Like with the language, just suffer through it, suffer through your mistakes, and just put yourself out there. You will learn so much more from your mistakes than if you just worry about doing the right thing all the time. And yeah, specifically with language, I'm a perfectionist, and learning to just make those mistakes really helped me not only on exchange, but also in my life.
Awesome. All right. Next, I'm going to talk about Caitlin. She went to Brazil 2017, 2018, which was 2 years ago. She said one of the hardest parts of her exchange was misunderstandings with host families, like both their end and hers. She found out from a friend that they thought that she didn't like them because she always said no when they asked her to do stuff, but like she really just didn't understand, and she actually really liked the family. She dealt with this problem by like going back to her first family's house for lunch, and like they talked through the problems and like figured stuff out instead of just leaving stuff how it was. And like it might be embarrassing, but like fixing stuff and like talking through it makes everything better. What do you wish you knew about going into exchange? People in your school may not make a huge effort to get to know you. This is definitely true, at least for me also. Like, not everyone was like super excited that I was an exchange student, and like not everyone wanted to be friends with me. So like you're gonna have to put effort in, which is not really something many people told me before I went, but like not nagging, but like talking to your classmates all the time, like asking them to do things with you and stuff like that, so you can build these relationships and make friends. Yeah. She said she wouldn't change anything about her experience besides trying harder and putting more effort into her relationship with her classmates. And her advice was to make sure to develop a relationship with your host family right away. Do not be embarrassed to ask them to repeat themselves and tell them what you understand. And also just don't be embarrassed to try and talk to them, even if like it doesn't make sense what you're saying. Just keep trying to speak in your language, and like don't just like put it off as something you'll fix later, because it's really important to having a good exchange is having a good relationship with your host family. So yeah. All right. Next is Anya. She went to Thailand last year. One of the most challenging parts of her exchange was one of her host families she had some problems with, and it made her feel pretty uncomfortable. So what she did is she talked to her mom back here in the United States, and so she talked, and I think she also talked to the Rotary here. I don't really remember, but she switched families. I know she switched families. What she said, if you feel uncomfortable with something that is going on with your host family, talk to them about it, or talk to Rotary about it. Just in general, talk to someone about it, because that'll definitely help, instead of just like waiting, or like if it's a serious situation, like keeping yourself in that situation maybe isn't even safe for you. So you should definitely talk to someone about it first, your host family, to like see if there's just maybe like a miscommunication or something. But if it goes on further than that, don't be afraid to reach out to Rotary here or in your host country. She said For would you change anything about your experience abroad, she said yes, but also no, because everything that happened was perfect, but she wishes she took a few more chances on things. And her advice is, if you feel uncomfortable with something that is going on with your host family, talk to them about it. Like, once again, like I said, communication is like extremely important, especially like with your host family when you're living in like a different family's house. It's really important to talk through your problems with them. And yeah. All right, so next is me. I'm Ellie Redeman. I went to Italy last year. One of the most challenging parts of my exchange was kind of the language for me. I just assumed that right once I got to my country, I would pick it up, because that's kind of what it's made to seem like. Everyone's like, you'll be fluent in 3 months, like just you'll pick it up and it'll be awesome. But it was a lot more challenging than that for me. Especially since at first I like slipped into a habit of talking to people in English just because it made like everything easier, and like I was like in a different country without knowing anyone, so I just relied on my English to like sort of make friends and like create a relationship with my host family. But in the end, that was actually like really harmful for my language skills, because like I don't know, it took me a while to like learn the language. Like I said, like to deal with this, I like eventually stopped speaking English with anyone, but like until then my language skills weren't like advancing as fast as they could have if I just like started off speaking Italian in the first place. And like about this, like it's gonna be embarrassing at first in your host language. Like I made so many mistakes speaking Italian and like embarrassed myself so many times. Like I got picked on by some people, but the point is that like just keep like trying to work through it. Like once you get through that first stage of like embarrassment and like the language being challenging, you learn so much and you learn so fast, and it's so beneficial to your exchange to like keep pushing the language, because the language is like a big part of your exchange. Because for me, without the language, it made it harder to make like deep relationships with like my friends and my classmates, and like school was hard at first because like I didn't know the language. So definitely put in the time and effort for the language. That is my thing. Okay. One thing I wish I knew going on to exchange is that everyone's exchange is different and you really shouldn't compare, which is like something I already talked about, but it's like, it's so true. Like I would see like my like friends or other outbounds from like this district like having an amazing time, like making amazing friends, and I'd be like, well, what am I doing wrong? But that's not really what it's about. It's more your experience. Like take your time, like you will make friends. Like also people are only putting the best parts of their exchange out for you to see. You're not like seeing the actual bad parts of their exchange. So like just remember that like every experience is like unique. And one thing I would change is I would learn my host country language more before I left. So you guys, you should study your language, even if it's just a little bit before you leave. All right. My advice would to really put yourself out there. Don't be like afraid of like setting a wrong impression or coming off as weird or anything like that, because in reality you're only in your host country for 1 year. So like if you just like are shy the whole time and like don't really put yourself out there, you're not going to like meet the people who actually you can like become friends with and like meet these life-changing people on exchange. Don't be afraid to try something new. I tried a lot of new stuff that I was really bad at. I did theater. I was terrible at it. It was super embarrassing, but like I met one of my closest Italian friends there, so that was awesome. Then what did I, and don't be afraid to like ask your exchange students like, no, that sounded weird. Don't be afraid to ask your classmates, there you go, to do stuff with you, because like like Bella said, they're probably just not thinking of it like when they're like making plans for the weekend. So don't be afraid to be like, oh, you want to do something with me? Or like, oh, is it okay if I come with you to this like party or something? Or like, oh, like, do you want to do this together? Because most likely they're not gonna, I'm not most likely, but a lot of times they're just not gonna think of inviting you. It doesn't mean that they like don't want to hang out with you. So my advice is put yourself out there. Yeah, and don't be afraid to reach out to the other exchange students in your host country district or the outbounds here. I know for me, like my year, it was a good support system. Like we'd always talk to each other in group chats, and like if anybody had any problems, we would just talk it out, and that really helped. All right, do you guys have any questions?
Can I just add something quick? My thing wasn't in there because I didn't do it. But
Gosh.
mine was similar. Like if I was going to answer the same questions, I think the main thing that I would say is I definitely did have a problem with making friends, and this was completely subconscious that I was thinking this. But I felt like since I was in their country, I felt like they kind of had an obligation, like my classmates had an obligation to ask me to hang out because I was like the guest. But when I think about it more, and when I came back, I really, really regretted that I didn't make plans first. And also I did start speaking German late as well. And I wish that I would have started sooner. So yeah, definitely recommend that. And just don't be afraid to make plans with people in your class. Just shoot your shot. If there's someone that you think seems cool, start a relationship with them soon. Ask them to hang out, just go like get food or something. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, any questions?
Come on, we know there are questions out there.
Do you guys still know your host languages? Personally, this is really sad, but I am losing my language pretty fast. I learned Italian. I wasn't like completely, I don't know, the definition of fluent is weird, but like my like language level by the end I was proud of. Like I worked really hard, but now that I'm back, I don't know, I've kind of been struggling to like upkeep it. This is, by the way, this is a question from Sophia. Do you guys still know your host languages as well as you did? Sorry, I didn't read that before. But yeah, I don't know mine as well as I did, but also like, it's like my bad. Like I definitely could have been doing a lot of different things to upkeep my language, which I have not been doing.
Yeah, I stayed really close with some people in Germany, and so my German actually ended up getting better because I stayed close with my friends, and also I studied German in college, and I'm a German major. So yeah, I would consider myself fluent by whatever definition you want to use. But yeah, I put a lot of work into keeping it up, and especially taking college classes and talking to my friends back in Germany, helped keep up those skills.
I am not a Danish major. Spanish has taken quite an interesting fall. I would say by the time I left Denmark, though, I would say I was fairly fluent in terms of like the time span that I was there, in terms of how fast you could like pick up a language. I'd say I was in a really good spot, and I was in a spot that I was proud of, which I think is the most important part, is that you can't really compare your language abilities to others just because it's just such like it's just a skill that you either have and you put a lot of time in, or it might just be a little bit more difficult for you. So I think just setting yourself some goals that you can achieve throughout your time would make it a lot more fulfilling in the end, instead of saying, was I fluent, was I not fluent? Because I think there's a lot more factors than just checking that off your list.
Yeah, I'd say fluency is really, really weird because there's no real definition of fluency. You know, as someone's, you could say you're or think you're fluent, but not be able to understand every single word in a book that you read in your, you know, like that. You can still be fluent. I personally like when people would ask me if I was fluent, I would say like I can say everything I want to say and everything that I would need to say normally. So yeah, it's really like don't put too much pressure on yourself to, you know, think you need to know every word or whatever.
Yeah,
And
and like
I'm also a German major, and I've noticed that my German has slipped quite a bit. Um, it's been like 3, 4 years now since I was on exchange in Austria. So I noticed it definitely takes me time to get into the German mode. Whereas when I was in Austria, it was just kind of always there. I was always in the German mode because I was always seeing it, reading it, hearing it. But now I just like it takes me maybe a half hour of just like kind of forcing myself to speak German, listen to it, and then once I get my brain like in that mode, then it's like kind of easy to slip back into it. So yeah.
Awesome. Now it is past 5:30, so we want to be respectful of your time. But as you said before, if you want to get in contact with any of us, our email is rotex6250@gmail.com. Also follow our Instagram. Whew. Ha. A lot of new content may be coming. We don't know yet. We have a lot of time on your head, so we'll make something happen. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this, guys.
Yeah.
No problem.
thank you.
All right.
Bye.
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 Bye bye. I'm leaving.